Good evening. Hello,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Good evening, Don. Good evening, Tamara.
What's
Good
this
evening.
show?
This show, thank you, Donnie. I'm used to being the co-host. We welcome you to the Black Business Roundtable discussion that will encompass East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between. This show is designed to bring together Black businesses all across America. As I had indicated at the first show that Donnie had me to be a guest speaker on, we've been flinging around here its little fingers getting broken off. We're going to come together as one fist, and we're going to take a big jab at making sure that African American Black people get their fair share of that $1.9 trillion in government contract that is on its way. We can't accomplish that unless we are united. But I would be remiss if I did not give praise and glory to God for bringing us here. First, I'd like to thank our chief editor, general manager, man who wears many hats. This man, when I met him, I was thoroughly impressed. I thought his name was Donnie Glover, which it is, but that's his alias. But this gentleman has, by himself, put together a multimedia podcast show that is not just this show right here. That show includes BeMore.news, BlackUSA.news. Also, this man is a book writer. This gentleman has written a successful book, and I'm in the process of reading it now, and the name speaks for itself. Unapologetically Black. And Donnie, I am apologetically Black. I thank you for making me prouder of being Black. We appreciate your effort and your work, and where you had traveled with a lighter wagon. You now have Tamara Brown, and I'd like to say, Tamara, it was a pleasure talking to you yesterday as it relates to your situation in Baltimore, Maryland. And let me be clear, Tamara, you are not alone. Sister, what happened to you on the East Coast in your position? It was the opposite what happened to me on the West Coast, as a contractor working on a $433 million project, and that was before change order. So I look forward into working with you and making sure that you get the justice, the economic justice that you deserve, sister, because I have been a staunch fighter for working with our sisters, especially our African-American sisters, who are doing amazing things now. Kim, I'd like to transition to you. Kim works with Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Kim has been an outstanding executive administrator for Tammy Willis, who could not be here today. She had other obligations. But I'm sure with Kim's background with the company, she would enlighten us on all the great things ahead for Magnolia Engineering and Construction. And I'd like to say that they want to be a sponsor for the Black Business Roundtable discussion.
Well, you ain't got to tell me twice. Thank you very much, Kim. Now, Doug, let me tell you, we have with us, and I don't know how long he can stay, but this gentleman down the bottom, this is Attorney Bob Dashiell.
Oh, we love attorneys. Put him on. Hey, we could put him on right now. I love it.
Because it looks like he's driving, and I know he don't have long. Mr. Dashiell.
Good evening, Donnie, and to your guest. And you are right. I am driving. I just left acupuncture, so I'm pretty relaxed, and I should be able to get through this without cussing.
Okay. Well, that's okay. This is a podcast. Let it go, sir.
No, Doug, slow down, pump your brakes. We both of y'all in the same boat. But Mr. Bob, just tell him lightly what you've been doing over the past 30, 40 years in this realm of Black business. And Kim, it's nice to meet you. Can't wait to hear the story.
Well, you know, I guess it really began around the mid-'70s when I worked with some other people, and we formed the Maryland Minority Contractors Association. Robert Clay and Doug Sands, the three of us founded that organization. I wrote the MBE laws in Maryland and in a number of other jurisdictions around the country. And I learned finance from being special counsel to the city's finance department under William Donald Schaefer. And over the over the, I don't know, 40 years that I guess since all that began, you know, I've become, I think, recognized as pretty much a procurement expert generally, but in particular as it relates to minority business programs and in finance. My theory is that, you know, the principles, the business principles apply without regard to the race of the ownership of the business. They apply generally. Yeah. And so when I find deficiencies in a system, typically if I can fix the system, it fixes it for everybody in the system, exactly. including black contractors. Our problem is we keep you know, everybody focuses upon it. We're an add-on to the system. We are necessary. We're necessary evil, if you will. Right. The system wasn't designed for our inclusion, and it's still maintained as though those people who are making the decisions will continue to be the ones in the position to make those decisions. And unfortunately, most people get up every day with that assumption in mind, with that belief in mind, and I'm just not one of those people. But my goal is to help anybody who's willing to provide employment to Black people at levels where they can support, nurture, raise, protect, and preserve the family. That's the key. I'm not in the least bit interested in making more Black millionaires. I'm not the least bit interested in seeing how many Black people can join the Center Club or any other club. It doesn't mean a thing to me. 99 9/10% of all people, if they're ever going to achieve economic security, are going to do it by virtue of the wages that they earn at the jobs they have. That includes Black people. So my job is to make sure that they have jobs available where they can support their families in the way that families are supposed to be supported, which is not a revolving door where you have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to keep a roof over your head. That's my story.
May I call you Robert?
Absolutely.
What you said is one of the premises, the founding pillars that this program is designed for. I can honestly tell you that when I was fired by one of the largest food companies in America, when I went home and told my daughter that I got fired, she said, "Daddy, you got fired? You could never go to my ball games. You was always late picking me up, and they still fired you?" Let me tell you something, Mr. Robert, Donnie, Tamara, and Kim. I pulled myself up, got me an attorney, and this was the first basement story, Donnie. I hunkered down in the basement for 3 years, and I won that legal action. And I told my daughter, and I brought her with me to see the conclusion of that litigation. But what you said, Robert, is so many thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Black Americans, both men and women, are suffering now. Do I keep my job and go there and do yes, I'm here, I'm here to work, sir? Or do I tell my job, like the other Caucasian people who do get the time off, say, hey, look, you know, I have to go pick my kid up on every Tuesdays and Thursday. Or this Saturday, I can't pull that 7th Saturday straight overtime after working 5 days in a row because I have to go see my kid play. I'm glad you brought that up because in disclosure and looking at when I was going through my legal action with that big food, one of the largest food distributors in the United States, the white men and women were getting off in 8.5 hours. My time was 14 to 16-hour days. So what you said hits into the heart of what I'm talking about. Does a Black person lose their job or lose their family? And economic development and growth should not come down to that. Tamara, do you have any opinion on that?
Well, first, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to the show, Doug and Donnie. This is a great platform, another great platform on this platform. So thank you. I know Doug's story, and I also know some of Mr. Dashiell's, Robert's story. So, you know, I have a similar story as well, and I know Doug wanted me to come on and speak about it. And I do understand how important job security can be. Was in a situation where I wasn't really concerned about the job security more so than the job and enforcing a lot of the things that both of you have spoken about as a city employee. So, you know, my focus was enforcing laws and codes so that, you know, a Doug or, you know, the people that Mr. Dashiell represents didn't have the problems that they had. So, unfortunately, that also led to my termination in doing my job, what I thought was best for the constituents and the people that were part of the MBE program in Baltimore City. So I know I take up a lot of time. I know Kim wants to speak. So thank you again for having me. This is absolutely wonderful, both coasts coming together. But what we'll see is a similar thread and we'll see a similar problem across the board. And I'm convinced this is a problem, of course, we all know nationwide, and it is absolutely impacting all of our families and all of our businesses. And so I'm looking forward to being part of the change in that process. Thank you for having me.
And I know we're working with limited time.
Let me just throw in there,
Robert. So is there anything you would like to finish up? Because the words that you started this new show, Black Business Roundtable Discussion, I think was an amazing foundation to where we're going to lift off from here and go to.
You know, Doug, we have a problem in this country, and the problem is we've never identified what the real problem is. The white supremacy is a problem that is embedded in both white and Black folk.
That's a good point.
We, you know, you don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. All you have to be is somebody who believes that white people are inherently superior to Black people or to anybody who's non-white. And the fact is, we believe that as much as white people do. And Trump stood for the proposition that it's okay for white people to be upfront with that feeling. They don't have to hide that anymore. And now the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th aren't any different than the people who surround the table at the Greater Baltimore Committee meeting. Okay? They all believe, and they're no different than the people that surround the table at the meeting of the President's Roundtable, the Black organization or the Black. Everybody there believes in white supremacy. Everybody, people are inherently and necessarily superior. The law, that's a legal principle. It was established in Brown v. Board of Education.
Right.
Okay. So, but I'm not interested in trying to fix white folk.
No.
I'm interested in trying to educate Black folk, because in our midst, we have the resources to accomplish what we need to accomplish. I'm not, the jobs that I'm talking about for our people, I'm not interested, you know, yes, some of us may will eventually, if not today, work for companies that are not owned by our people. But there's a hell of a lot of people that do work for companies that are owned by Black folk. And I'm interested in expanding and increasing those companies, because anxiety, depression are killers in our community. They're the unspoken, even more so than high blood pressure. More, we understand this? How do you feel? How does it feel going to a job every morning, knowing that you have the responsibility not only of doing your job as best you can, but doing it in a way such that the people you work for don't take into account the fact that you're Black and use that against you in some way? That's anxiety. That's depression. That's alcoholism. That's drug addiction. That's suicide. That's spousal abuse. Okay, that's all of those things.
May I interject with
that? I don't care, even if not having that anxiety of knowing that your life may be modified in ways that you have no control over because of something that you have no control over, which is the color of your skin. Okay, now we have the resources. I'll stop there because I don't even know if I'm talking on topic at this point. You just caught me riding down the highway, so you get what you get. So I'm done.
We're happy to have the legal advice at $300-400 an hour. Go ahead, though.
I passed $300 or $400 an hour 25 years ago.
Oh, well, go ahead, sir. But when you
let's be clear. Let's be clear about that. You're not talking to a $300 or $400 an hour lawyer.
Okay.
Now those out there, and I don't think he gets it, but I'm not one of them. I don't want that even spread in the airways.
Well, when you
go ahead, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Question to ask, sir. But go ahead and finish your.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
No. I'm pretty much done. You know, we had, that was a time, Doug, when we had institutions in our community. I'm not talking about well beyond the church. I mean, we had a Samson's restaurant, we had Cess's, we had the mecca of entertainment on the East Coast along Pennsylvania Avenue, the Royal Theater and all those things. We gave all of that up. Because we chased a thing called integration as though segregation was the problem. Segregation was never the problem. Segregation was just a means of enforcing white supremacy. They thought it was necessary to keep separate in order to maintain the superior position. We spent decades trying to end segregation, as though when segregation ended, that would be the end of our problem. We were misdirected. We joined a movement that had no end. What is the world supposed to look like when we have achieved what civil rights movement set out to accomplish? Who's going to be making the decision? Who's going to be in charge? What's going to be different about the world? Because I tell you this: as long as you have the same people making the decisions, you will have the same decisions made. I don't care how many decades passed. I don't know how many laws passed. As long as the same people are making the decisions, you're going to get the same decisions. If you cross the road at the same intersection in front of the bus every day that the bus comes at that hour, that bus will hit you.
Hey, okay. Bob, this is Doug's first time hosting the show. You're gonna shake him up too much.
Yeah, you gonna
he had a show plotted out a little bit.
Okay, so why don't we do this, Robert? And to wrap our questioning up here with you, sir. What do you think about a legal defense fund for Black men and women-owned businesses across America? Just like the NAACP has a national defense fund to help our brothers and sisters fight the civil unrest in this country. What do you think about a legal defense fund? And can you wrap it up in 60 seconds?
I don't want a legal defense fund. I want an organization to train Black leadership. We don't need a legal defense fund. We need we need to be able to
Yeah, so you're getting cut off, Mr. Dashiell, if you can hear us, but I think, Doug, some of the issue, we all have different things that we want to see happen in the community, and I think we're a little disconnected in those areas, and if we could all come together, and I think everyone's agenda is just as important as the other, but we have to figure out a way to mesh those and develop a consortium that provides everything that we know that everyone needs. So I know what Mr. Dashiell is saying he'd like to see. And I know what you'd like to see and what I'd like to see and Donnie'd like to see, and all of that, it's really the same end game. And so we're all going to work together to make sure that's done.
Okay.
Doug, I just wanted you to know you're not the only angry black man in America.
Thank you for the invite.
I love your energy. I love your energy, Mr. Dashiell.
Thank you for the invite. I have to go. And one thing I heard, this is a great platform. Be community and exchange between thinking black folk is a good platform. So this is another example of.
Okay, I think we've lost Mr. Robert, but we appreciate you being on the show, and we look forward to having you back. I'd like to introduce, or first I'd like to ask Jimmy to turn on your camera, or to cut on the camera.
Jimmy's been back there for a minute.
Yeah, cut on your camera, Jimmy. And then I'd like to introduce Kamal Hubbard. Kamal Hubbard is a officer with the, and not a police officer, with the Office of Civil Rights and San Mateo County Transportation Authority. And Kamal Hubbard has come on last week, and I invited him back on this week because he did an outstanding job understanding the inside of these organizations that are government organizations that are targeted to help black and brothers and sisters get these big government contracts. And once again, remember this number, $1.9 trillion. How many of those dollars are black businesses going to get? So, Mr. Kamal, can you take a few minutes and introduce yourself, sir?
Cut your mic on.
Cut your mic on. Okay. The headphones not working too well, and we can't hear you. Okay, why don't we let you address that? Kim works for Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Kim, she doesn't work; she's a consultant. Let me rephrase that. And Magnolia Engineering and Construction has decided to become one of Black Business Roundtable discussion sponsors. So, Kim, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business? Tammy Willis, who's the CEO, she had other commitments, so she couldn't make it. But talking to you, I'm sure you're an excellent spokesperson for Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Take the mic.
Well, I'll do my best. Hello, Douglas. Hello, Mr. Glover. Hi, Ms. Brown. My name is Kim Harris. I'm up here in Northern California, and I've known Douglas many years, and he contacted me and asked me if maybe I could be here today. So I'm going to do my best because Tammy is out today with other obligations for the business. One of the things that has been made very clear is that businesses here in the Bay Area have missed out on a lot of the funding in order to be able to participate in getting the contracts, because the small businesses that are Black owned, minority owned, women owned are having such a hard time partnering with the larger companies because they don't understand how to get the contracts, how to do the paperwork, how to participate in the whole bidding process in some instances. And so I just recently had come aboard to help with a lot of the administrative side, dealing with getting the website together, getting the information that needs to go onto the website so that Magnolia can be known. But we are one of the few Black-owned, women-owned, minority businesses here. And although this is a newer business, we're making sure that all of our ducks are in a row. We're having to make sure that we sign up, under DBE, MBE, all of those. But we recently just found out last week that if you sign up for one of those avenues, it actually helps you with the rest of them. But once again, we were not aware that you could sign up for one of those to get one of those credentials and have it flow through and meet all of the other requirements for the other ones. No one tells you these things. You have a hit and miss probability of even finding out these things. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be something that's more central that can give you, like a checklist. These are the things that you need to do. And you follow that checklist and you'll be all right. But the way that it's set up right now, it's hunt and peck. You're trying to find a needle in a haystack in order to be competitive and be able to compete. So I recently did a class here through Turner Construction. Both Tammy and I did together, actually. And we did certain exercises like bid leveling, which is when a subcontractor, Doug's holding it up right there. When you're a subcontractor.
I went to the class too and I got my certificate.
So we all have our certificates now. But we learned things like in the bid leveling process, what that is, which I had never heard of because I'm kind of new to the industry, is that when you submit your bids, say to a large construction company like Turner Construction, and there's several others that are bidding, what they do is they actually take the bids and they try to make them all on the same level. So say, Kamal, you turned in a bid and you forgot the electrical portion. And say, Ms. Brown, you turned in your bid and maybe you forgot part of the concrete rebar section. And Mr. Glover, perhaps you forgot to put in for a portion of the drywall. Well, what they do is they will look at all those bids, break them out. So they will go, oh, this one forgot the electrical. This one estimated the electrical. Let's put that bid.
The sound went out.
So we'll try to add that in so that all the bids really can be a little bit fairer to everyone. Then you can really see what the cost of that project would be. So that was a big learning curve to find out that the contractors when they submit their bids, they do them so differently. Exactly. And if you have a company like Turner that actually will try to help get everyone on the same page so that your bids can then be, even Steven. So someone's not gaming the system in a way to get the bids. They're trying to make it so that everyone can participate fairly. So I thought that was excellent. We learned a lot about how the bids are accepted. We learned that you need to partner up with some of these larger companies. And once you do a good job for one of those companies, they want to keep you for the next job. So you do not want to mess up with your paperwork. You don't want to mess up with your people not showing up. You don't want to mess up because if you're a Black contractor, one mess up, you're out.
Exactly.
If you were a contractor of other nationalities and etc., you may be able to mess up 2, 3, 4 times, but you are still in their class of contractors. Well, that's not fair. Why do we have to live up to a higher standard than the rest of
Kim,
the contractors?
Let me ask you one question. I'll take you to the side. In Magnolia Engineering and Construction, in one paragraph or less, what would you say makes Magnolia stand out amongst the rest in regards to your services that you provide? One of the things that I was really intrigued about is how well the owner used to do audits for police departments and compliance for contractors. Can you speak on that for about a minute or two, please?
Yeah, Tammy's the CEO, her background, she used to do auditing of the police departments and the FBI, etc. So she's got security clearance as well for this business. That's very unique to have worked with elements such as that. She is also into real estate as well. So she's got a vast background in several different areas, but auditing is her forte, and she has won awards for that. And all of you will see that shortly up on our website. That may be up as early as next week with all the revamping that we've done for it. And so her background is very unique. So engineering and construction, doing the auditing side, which there's a lot of numbers that you have to deal with in construction and
especially government contracts.
Yeah, especially in the government contracts. And I think her knowledge of that area will help the small contractors and subcontractors that we're going to be working with to succeed, because they'll be able to get their paperwork in on time. She will be able to make sure that what they're turning in is correct, so that they can be have the appearance of as much professionalism as possible, because many of those subcontractors have not had the ability to get proper software in order to bill correctly, etc. Tammy will be able to help them do all of that administrative side.
So can I sum up? So Miss Willis, CEO and president of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, is not only a licensed engineer and construction contractor,
yes,
but a licensed real estate broker.
Yes.
She's a licensed tax preparer.
Yes.
She worked for the Department of Justice. She worked for the U.S. Attorney General, and she prepares taxes. Is she Jamaican?
Yes. I need to do my taxes.
But to that end, we want to once again thank you and Magnolia Engineering and Construction for your sponsorship, and we look forward to working with you in the future. I'm going to transfer over to Kamal Hubbard, who is the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. Can you give us a 2 to 3 minute briefing of what you do, and explain to all our listeners the opportunity that's right on the horizon for not just here on the West Coast, but all across the nation? $1.9 trillion. And with this new Biden, Kamala Harris administration in, it's time to strike now. Please speak on it. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Uh-oh. No, it's not.
Yeah, he's still having some issues.
Tamara, you and I take over for a few minutes, and one of the things that Tamara and I have in common is that we've been beat up, kicked in the butt, bullied, thrown down, and still we stand up and say, "Is that your best shot?" So, can you give us a brief description of your challenges on the East Coast as it relates to doing your job and fairly dispersing opportunities and economic growth and development and contracts in Baltimore government? Thank you.
Yeah, so Kamal and I had similar positions. I did start off for a few months as an analyst with the Baltimore City Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office. And I can tell you that they would never have allowed me to come on a show like this. My leadership would never have allowed me. So I told Kamal on Saturday that, he was fortunate to be able to even speak without getting, multiple approval. So I did become the chief of the department, and I ran that department for a few months. About a year, close to a year. And, again, I do see differences. Kamal actually, again, it looks like, I don't know about what's going on in San Bernardino County, but it looks like they're at least trying, and he's able to speak freely on some things where I experienced a lot of stifling and not really able to speak freely on the problems with the program, when we saw a lot of things going on with minority businesses that weren't getting their fair share, or they were subcontractors and not getting paid on time. The way bids went out, even for minorities to bid as a prime, there were just little opportunities because there were different ways that the city would do things that made it a little more difficult for the minority. My title was the chief of the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office.
And tell us some of the things that you would do, go out of your way to make sure that Black male and female, Black women and men-owned businesses got paid. Please share that.
So something that I find unique about the Baltimore City program, after looking across the country at a lot of other programs, and I would always get calls from other jurisdictions, other cities, other counties across the nation, was that our laws, if you look at our code, it's established, we have a Baltimore City code that sets out the program. So there was legislation back in early 90s that was passed. And if you look at the legislation, it looks really great. And it looks great. You would think the program was just #1 in the country. However, to have legislation in the books and to draft legislation and to enforce legislation are two totally different things. And so what I found is that no one ever truly enforced the legislation, which included penalizing non-white or the prime companies for not utilizing subcontractors for the goals that were set. And that just didn't happen. So I believe it was September of 2019 or so, I did penalize a company, actually used a derogatory term in, it was before I came along, but they didn't use the African-American business. They had a specific African-American goal, which the code says you can set that, but for whatever reason, they weren't doing it often. And that African-American contractor was not utilized, and there was some the term that none of us ever want to hear was actually used at a city site in front of city project managers. And I'm just shocked that nothing happened prior to that. But that wasn't the reason. Of course, they denied it. But at any rate, I did penalize the company. And it was quite a big deal because apparently it never happened, which I was surprised. I was probably in high school or elementary school when these programs were set up and no one had ever penalized it, even though you could easily do that. So I went through that process and I did start penalizing the business. Basically, I just followed the code. I can't say that I created anything new or, came up with anything ingenious. I just did my job. And I was rewarded with that by being terminated.
And 60 seconds, or actually 120 seconds or less, briefly describe the horrific treatment they treated you at the end when you were trying to include Black businesses in that economic growth and development. Please, thank you.
I often, again, like I said, I could never speak on platforms like this. Donnie actually invited me onto a show when I was the chief of the department because he attended a class that I taught and I was talking about the penalty and he was so excited about it. And, again, like I think Kim was talking about just being an African-American woman. I was the only African-American woman or the only African-American female chief in the law department. And I do believe I was treated like a child at times, and this is by people, my own people. I can't say that it was, white, just really stifled. And, I was selected for the position even before I knew I wasn't even interviewing for the position. So they felt I was responsible enough to hold the job, but just not responsible enough to do my job. And I don't think that the white men and white women that ran other offices in the law department were treated the same. So it was very difficult. I couldn't come back to City Hall to even get my things. I was treated like a criminal in a sense when I was terminated. And so it's, just for speaking out and standing my ground on things that I believe in and standing up for people really got me in hot water. So I will wrap this up by saying that, on the inside, if I'm being treated like that as an employee that was employed to do that job, I can only imagine the horror stories of the businesses that, engage in these programs across the country. I'm sure it's quite difficult for them to navigate.
Tamara, let me carefully and state this emphatically. You are not alone, sister. My podcast, Black Business Roundtable Discussion, we are going to build a momentum, not just here on the West Coast, that they're going to hear us on the East Coast. So whatever you do, you keep fighting. And I just want to tell you a quick story in 30 seconds. I stayed in the basement of my parents' house through 2 lawsuits, totaling over 6 years I lost in my life when I chose to challenge both a contractor doing a government contract and one of the largest food carriers in the United States, I prevailed. But it took energy, it took strength, and it almost took my sanity. But let me tell you, sister, on the other side, there's light shining, and there's your pot of gold. But don't give up. And anytime you do, and we had this conversation yesterday, call Tyrone, call Doug in this case. Okay, Kamal, and thank you, Tamara. We appreciate it. Thank you, Kim. Stay on. Kamal, have we worked out the sound?
I hope so. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It's definitely been one of those days. I got caught up in a meeting, so I'm a little late to the show. Thanks for your patience with me as I worked all this stuff out. Once again, my name's Kamal Hubbard. I am the DB administrator in the Office of Civil Rights at the San Mateo County Transit District. What we do here at the district is there is a bus operation under Samtrans, fixed rail operations under Caltrain, and we also have a transit authority that handles road and highway operations and projects. So I'm here just to conduct outreach and to let people know that there are opportunities that are here at our agency, and we want to have as much DB participation as possible. However, in years past, our DB participation with Black-owned firms in particular has been low. So, you know, I consider this to be part of that outreach that I'm doing. I've heard, you know, just a few stories from today that are highly discouraging. And just as you said earlier, Doug, you know, don't get discouraged, continue to work hard, reach out to me. I will be an advocate for not just all DB firms, but Black firms in particular, because once again, we want our numbers to increase and we want those numbers to go up. One thing that I heard from Kim earlier is sometimes Black firms don't get the same sort of forgiveness as other firms out there.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm not speaking necessarily for the experience that I'm getting at Samtrans or the San Mateo County Transit District, but sometimes what we'll see with prime firms is they kind of have one Black firm on their contracts at a time, you know, and they'll have one firm that they work with until they essentially either retire or they graduate from the DB program. And I think that's something that needs to change. We can't just have a one-at-a-time policy for our Black firms working on these projects, you know. And obviously Magnolia Doug, you and I have talked about it. Magnolia is certainly a diamond in the rough. And
yes,
you know, that's a testament to the multifaceted professional skills that Tammy has, as well as I'm sure her staff too. So, you know, it's so great to see a firm like hers come along.
Can I take you to the side and with a 2-minute window here, can you briefly explain? And I thought it was an amazing matchmaking ceremony that you invited Magnolia Engineering and Construction to, where she had the opportunity to meet 5 large engineering contractors and get her name out. Can you explain that process so that our partner and our sister on the East Coast can understand how we roll on the West Coast?
Well, actually, that was the first time I had ever done something like that. And, you know, typically our matchmaking is done in person, where we invite not just the prime firms, but the various small businesses and DBEs into a room. We talk about a given project, the scopes of work, and what our DBE goal is going to be. And then we allow the small businesses and the prime firms to kind of meet and mingle with one another for, you know, the better part of an hour or two. Obviously, with the pandemic, that was not possible this time. And we had a project under the Transportation Authority that had a 15% DBE goal. And we needed to do matchmaking, and we needed to do outreach for this this project. So we utilized Zoom. And Zoom is a very elusive program, I guess you could say, or software application. So, you have your regular Zoom account that you can get that'll cut you off at 40 minutes, which is the free account. Then you can have a paid account. But there's Zoom webinars, and then there's something called Zoom meetings. And a webinar is just that. It's where only, a few people can be on a panel at once, doing a training and whatnot, and different people can raise their hands and give Q&A at certain times. That's what we did for the portion where we introduced the scope of work in the project, as well as the primes. We let the primes do introductions as well. That was with Zoom webinar. The other product that Zoom has for large groups is called Zoom meetings. And under Zoom meetings, what you can do is have various breakout rooms and breakout sessions. So what we tried to do in those breakout sessions is match the primes with a group of DBEs on a given period so that they can introduce each other, talk about, what those small businesses do. And it was an opportunity for the small businesses to, once again, sound off on the great things and the great work that they do and how they could possibly be a fit for the project.
Mr. Hubbard, let me be extremely blunt and honest. And since we have East Coast representation here, what you have done over there in San Mateo County Transportation Authority is amazing. You have found a way to reach out and make sure that all people have an opportunity to get government contracts and succeed. And I applaud you for that, sir. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
And I think
that means a lot.
Yeah, we did something similar here like a month before I was
but you didn't have the backing of the executive administration of the city, of the county, and of the state. One of the things that we're going to have to, we as a block of people providing services and professional services and products and goods, when those government contracts come out, as the disparity of Oakland has demonstrated, when you have $450 million a year in government contracts coming out of the city of Oakland, and 86% of those dollars are going to white men, that's a problem. That's a problem. When you break it out even further and you demonstrate that you have 6% of that $450 million going to black contractors, that is essentially, I'll just say, slavery. 6%. We have homelessness at 70% African Americans on the street that I drive by every day. Those could be people out there doing these contracts. They could have been people out there doing those contracts. But I'm going to tone it down, the angry black man thing.
Can I ask Kamal a quick question? Really quick?
Yeah.
Kamal, what do you all have software to track the utilization of your minority and women-owned businesses?
Yes, we do. And actually,
thank you.
I've been working doing my level best because to get this automated, right? I think we discussed the previous time. I started out as a business analyst, a research analyst, a data analyst, a management analyst. So, I'm decent with data, but, it all comes down to the resources you have. And even still, when you're focused on the data, there's an element of my job where I need to get out there as best I can and let people know that we exist.
Exactly.
San Mateo County is one of the wealthiest counties in the state of California.
In the nation.
We have
in the nation.
In the nation for that matter. We have California high-speed rail running on our fixed rail from San Francisco down to Gilroy. And we are one of the main systems that manages those funds. And like I have been told from my upper management to go out there and let everyone know that we're open for business. Looking at the data that I see, once again, we do not have a proportionality when it comes to our Black firms. So I find it incumbent upon myself to reach out as much as possible. If I need to reach out to the Oakland Black Chamber of Commerce, let them know that we have opportunities. The San Francisco Black Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Silicon Valley Black Chamber of Commerce, and let them know, hey, we need you guys to show up and we need you guys to be here. But a lot of times DBEs say, well, we didn't know there were opportunities, or we didn't know those opportunities existed. And, I can't really speak to my predecessors in the job that they've done, but I do, once again, my level best to get the word out and to make sure everybody is exposed and knows about the opportunities that we have at our agency.
Okay, Kamal Hubbard, Tamara Brown, and Kim Harris. I'm calling you all by your first names because I feel like we're family now. We're coming up on the 8-minute mark. So in 1 minute, Tamara, can you tell us what is your goal? What do you see would be a goal for the Black Business Roundtable discussion as we move forward? And we're going to have guests, which we're going to include council people, mayors, we have doctors, lawyers, accountant. Well, with Tammy, we got 3 in 1: accountant, taxes, and contractor. Well, we're going to have a variety of people here. And I even want to put this out there before I forget. We have drivers coming in from one of the largest trucking companies in the world who are going to be talking about racial discrimination. But in the last minute, Tamara, can you wrap up in 1 minute? What do you see out of the Black Business Roundtable discussion? Thank you.
Awareness, education, collaboration, and growth, and a movement. I've been saying here in Baltimore that there is a movement. We have Black Lives Matter with police brutality, equal pay. There's a lot of issues, but our businesses, our Black businesses, they are also struggling, and our economic, stamina is struggling. And I want to see more companies bid as primes and grow and not stay or go out of business. So my goal is to, advocate as much as I can for anyone across the country, and to make sure that politicians know that we're paying attention to this, and for our businesses to get their fair share, and just for the discriminatory practices to stop when our tax dollars are contributing to those funds. Thank you.
And we're going to look forward to you being a guest speaker on this show again, because Mr. Hubbard, Mrs. Brown, you two need to talk, because we need to strengthen the East Coast like the West Coast, and we need to further strengthen the West Coast. I commend you, sir, for doing an outstanding job. We're going to let the ladies go before you get to your last minute wrap up. Ms. Harris, can you wrap up in a minute with Magnolia Engineering Construction? Thank you. Your mic.
That we are new, but we are solid. And we are looking forward to working with these larger companies and helping the subcontractors come aboard. And so that they can shine through as very professional as well. Because that's a big part of this. How they look on paper, but how they also look in person. And the professionalism needs to be everywhere in their businesses. And we want to help them to do that.
And Miss Harris, I'd like to say thank you. Thank Magnolia Engineering and Construction, and we appreciate your sponsorship on our Black Business Roundtable discussion. Mr. Kamal, in 1 minute, can you give us and all 3 of you will be back. And Mr. Kamal, in 1 minute, can you give us a perspective of where San Mateo County is going, and how you further plan to not only work here, but I'm sure Mrs. Brown's going to be calling you for a little bit of advice. Thank you, sir.
Well, My goal is to make sure that we elevate the message that our agency is open for business. The DBE program is a federal program. It's a national program. Once again, we have California High-Speed Rail. This project is going to need as much help as we can get. With a new administration, a new Department of Transportation agenda, with all the funding that you talked about, means that there's going to be funding coming this way. And we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to take part in those upcoming federally funded projects. So I look forward to working with people, not just on the private side, but on the public side too, right, in working together to just elevate the message that the opportunities are for us too.
And as we conclude in the last 3 minutes, Mrs. Brown, and once again, I allude back to Mrs. Brown. Let me tell you, sister, the road and journey may seem long and hard right now, but look at this camera here. You're building a team and you're building momentum. And we applaud you for standing strong for those brothers and sisters, even against people who look like you, to fight you to help increase economic growth and stability in the Black community. Ms. Harris, we appreciate you, and we, considering you're a sponsor, you'll be probably on once a week sponsoring. So thank you for your time. I know starting an engineering and construction company, and my understanding from Ms. Willis, you are doing an outstanding job. So keep up the great work. Right on, Black woman power and non-traditional trades and industry. Mr. Hubbard, we want to commend San Mateo County for standing strong in light of a past presidency that promoted and instigated racism and unfairness as it relates to Black and economic growth and development in this country. And let me be clear to all those listeners who are out here, it's a new day. We have Kamala Harris, the first Black woman president. We have Joe Biden, who is an older white gentleman. So we can't all say that all people are all bad. We must turn that ship around. We must highlight, and let me assure you, I will be highlighting those companies that continuously use racism and bad work practices to treat their employees, whether they be labor or union. For those professional companies where you have accountants and hardworking people who take time away from their families to build another person's business, but are left fluttering in the wind like my finger being broken off, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. And for those general contractors, and I'm going to use the name because my attorney said so in the past interview last Saturday, those Clark Constructions, no longer will you put Black businesses out of businesses. Across this country, there is an effort to unite us as a unit. We are coming with fists. We're not coming with fingers anymore. We thank all of you for this amazing, awesome show today. Next week, for those who choose to chime in, it's going to get nothing but better for all of us. Thank you and good night.